Rudolf Steiner, who gave a series of agricultural lectures in 1924, said, everything in nature is interdependent, everything. I have to emphasize this again and again. And I hope that in this kind of quick tour of what a healthy plant is doing and how fungi connect it, you now see that whole earlier slide, how we come out on the other side, and recognize that pest challenges, disease issues, are really about a nutritional or biological deficiency. So we're going to get into applying those lessons and understand how to go about providing proper amounts of minerals so that this healthy plant metabolism, the enzyme cofactor, can take place. Learn about the timing of that. And also learn about how do you manage an orchard, a berry patch, even a garden, to be more fungal. So I brought up the idea of forest edge ecology. This picture is so not forest edge. This is my daughter, Gracie. When you write a book, you want a picture of certain things, and you like to rotate who's in the picture. You don't just want your picture there all the time. And this looks like my daughter, Gracie, knows how to handle the BCS mower. She's never mown. I had to take like 60 pictures so she could find one that she would approve of. Has nothing to do with forest edge ecology, but that's the point. I'm making it forest edge-like in the soil ecosystem under my trees. And you're going to remember it because of Gracie's photo. Besides mineralization and assimilation, the soil food web, when it's really primed and really doing its thing well, also does something called humification. This is the putting of carbon into soil. This is the making of soil aggregates. And part of this storyline is the work of what are known as white rots, a certain group of decomposition fungi, and their ability to use enzymatic chemistry to break down the lignins and hardwood to form the humic substances that make for long-term soil fertility. That's what humification means. So we're going to use that idea, and we're going to use it by understanding some research that was done at Laval University in Quebec starting back in the 70s, continued through the 80s. And those researchers were looking at the question, what can we do with the tops of trees left from logging jobs to build agricultural soil? Are there techniques that we should understand, nuance that will help us use that fertility stored in the cambium cells of the tops of those trees more effectively? And obviously the tops of the trees can be left in the forest to build the soil there. That's where humification is kind of the main scene of this. And what they discovered was really two important tenets. One was that the smaller portion of the tree, now I'm talking about the buds and the twigs, all the minerals are stored in those green inner bark cells, what's known as the cambium. And when you talk about the top portion of the tree, 2.5 inches in diameter or less, 75% of the minerals are stored in that portion, and only 25% in the trunk. This again is in the cambium cells, not the whole of the organic matter, but the cambium cells themselves. So that's where you get the most nutrition to offer into the orchard. Another part of this is that the smaller portion of the tree, the woody part, is very rich in carbon. So proportionally, when you chip or lay down branches of the tops of trees, you are working with a carbon to nitrogen ratio on the order of 40:1 to 71 in the smaller portion of the tree. That doesn't tie up nitrogen. That's kind of a fungal sweet spot. If you chip the bigger portion of the tree, this is where you cut out 2x4s and 2x10s. And you probably know the maxim that it's not a good idea to mulch with sawdust because it's going to tie up nitrogen. Here the carbon to nitrogen ratio gets as high as 700:1. And so that takes longer to decompose. Now we're kind of looking at the floor of the boreal forest, and that's where peat moss comes from. It doesn't break down the same way the tops do in terms of forming these humic substances. Another part of the story was I've mentioned the white rot fungi. There's another group of decomposition fungi we'll call the brown rots. It's not affiliated with the disease of peaches and stone fruits. We're talking generically right now. Brown rots are able to partially consume the lignin of softwood trees, and in the process of doing that, they produce allelopathic compounds that inhibit the growth of deciduous trees. So brown rots actually help softwood trees keep their niche in the forest. And I just said something really relevant. Softwood material, brown rots, inhibit the growth of deciduous trees. So if your mulch source, your Ramial chipped wood source, is mostly softwood, you're creating a dynamic that's not in favor of the fruits and the berries that you're trying to grow. I want to emphasize that this allelopathic process, last one, is really about the first 6, perhaps as much as 12 months of the breakdown of that material. So eventually that organic matter has value, but if it's more softwood, it can go into blueberries. That's a whole other mycorrhizal thing going on there. It can go in pathways. It can be used in barn stalls as bedding, but you want to age that manure when it comes out. There's a place for it, but it's not something, especially with a young fruit tree, you want to totally surround with softwood-derived material, because there's a whole other decomposition scenario that takes place there. So we know what the good stuff is. We know what's maybe a little more problematic. Now we need to learn how to use it. So Ramial chipped wood means running it through a chipper, but not trying to make it really fine. So it comes out as coarse chips, and it comes out as twigs. You see the buds. But the green cambium, through the chipping process, is exposed. That becomes relevant if you're trying to get ground more fungal in the fall. But it doesn't necessarily have to be chipped. Again, we're talking about the smaller portion of the tree, but it's coarse. As I get in describing fungal duff management, take your mind eye to the edge of the forest. We're emulating what takes place there. This is where trees fall to succession and their lignins start to be taken back into the soil. It's coarse. No one's out there chipping. I'm showing you a picture of chipping, but we're going to even look at that a little bit more. So where do you get that? Landscapers, those orange trucks for the Asplund company, clearing along power lines or the edges of roads. If you see them at work and it's hardwood that they're mostly working with, stop, offer them cold beer, offer them whatever it takes. Bring those chips to your farm. There's a pile. Well, I have a pile from last fall. This picture is a little older than that. And last fall, I had a 10-pound bag of spawn inoculum for the garden giant mushroom, the wine cap. And I put that into the pile, and this spring I'll be dispersing this. And there's going to be wine caps coming up all over in the orchard in this easy mechanism of distributing this. So that's an outside source. If you're clearing land, cutting your own firewood, you have the ability to utilize that wood if you have a chipper. But another source is in the orchard itself. These are deciduous trees, and when you prune, you are mostly removing smaller wood from the tree. And now let's get rid of the idea of the chipper, because not all of you are of the scale that you might have a chipper. We'll see my chipper in a little bit. If you cut those branches into smaller bits, so that they essentially lay flat. So we'll look at trees today. I don't know if Wayne's left anything to prune or not, but when we go out in the orchard, there's water sprouts, which are vigorous suckers that are essentially no branches, and if you cut them off, they lay flat. It isn't that they have to be cut into smaller bits. This is part about your compulsive, obsessive nature. But I want them to lay flat, and I do this, I have 3 acres of orchard. It's not a huge orchard. But I do this with the smaller branches, so I don't have to pick them up again to put them through the chipper. Yeah, I have a chipper, but I don't want to have to pick up all these things. And often it's not that hard to just do a snip or two and drop it. So I want to just emphasize that as a home orchardist, you can really plug into this. But you want it to lay flat, because now we have to understand a little bit more about decomposition fungi.